Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to our continuing coverage of the 2024 MUFON Symposium right here in Irving, Texas. We have the great pleasure of being joined by the MUFON Director of International Investigations, Bob Spearing.
How are you, Chris?
How are you doing?
Pretty good.
Great to finally meet you in person.
Yes.
We've spoken numerous times, especially about Project Aquarius, things like that. I was very happy to see Project Aquarius getting a good response from people here at the symposium. How have people been receiving it?
It's going very well. As a matter of fact, we're just about to begin redacting the 64 diaries of Leonard Stringfield. It's about 6,000 pages, all right? And we're going to be putting them up one diary at a time. There's so much sensitive stuff in it, and some of the people involved are still alive.
Yeah.
That you have to redact some of the information out. When I was in headquarters in Cincinnati in October, I found a box with 6 8-track tapes and 2 reel-to-reels. And the 6 8-track tapes were audio interviews with Leonard Stringfield.
Wow.
And the reel-to-reels were interviews with NICAP people in the 1960s on radio shows. So I just dropped them off in Nashville on the way here, and they're digitizing them. So they're going to be going up in a week or two. So it's just growing and growing and growing.
Epic. That is so fantastic. And to know the, especially on 8-track.
And the guy looked at them, the digitizer, and he goes, "These are in really good shape."
Yeah.
He goes, "I think I'm going to be able to do this."
That's awesome. That's awesome. And you know, once again, whenever you're archiving things, it can be so hard to properly store media, to make sure that things are archived for eternity. And the fact that you guys are going through and digitizing literally 30, 40 years worth of information from 1969 to now, coming up at 55.
Yeah.
55 years. So, yeah, that's absolutely phenomenal and amazing to be able to make that available to the public. Now, let's start getting into, because you're here at the symposium presenting cases of interest this year.
I'm doing actually 3 presentations.
Oh.
I'm doing 2 more tonight.
Wow.
So,
wow.
I just finished the cases of interest for 2023. The criteria is it either occurred in 2023 or it was reported in 2023, but may have been in a historical case. Like, sometimes people wait 40 years.
Yeah.
I was 15 years old in 1975, and this happened to me. But they wait till now because they didn't know about MUFON or they were afraid of being humiliated.
Yeah.
And the third criteria is there's a case in 2023 that's part of a larger pattern. So this year we did something different. Instead of doing like 5 to 10 standalone cases, we did 3 standalone cases of interest. And we found a lot of patterns because I'm a patterns guy. And so we did 3 suites of cases, one on animal mutilations and abductions, one on jellyfish UFOs. We start off with the analyzing the Corbell video.
Yeah.
And then the first one were a phenomenon that we only recently discovered called skull drillers in people's bedrooms.
Let's get into that for a minute. Skull drillers. Explain that to the audience for those that may not be familiar, Bob.
Okay. Last year, I'm very good friends with an Israeli psychologist, and she knows I'm into the UFO thing. She says, "Bob, I have a patient." She claims that a hooded figure came into her bedroom. She suffered sleep paralysis, and it drilled into her skull behind the left ear and inserted something. So I said to her, we get a lot of bedroom incursions by mysterious objects, but I've never heard of something being drilled into somebody's head. Don't you know, 6 months later, last year, a case came in from Australia. Woman paralyzed. 90% of the time it's women. Their husband never wakes up. All right. There's obvious harm caused.
Sure.
It's either hooded figures, tall Nordics working in conjunction with Greys or Greys alone. And they all do the same thing, and they all use tools. So this first case was from Brisbane. And we found a second case because we thought it was interesting because I have the doctor's case. My friend, I have this first case. I found a second Australian case. And it was essentially the same enigma. And they talk telepathically to each other. Don't go there, go here. And sometimes they talk to the witness, don't move or you'll die. And the witnesses believe that something's being inserted in their head. Turns out that the second Australian case was only 60 miles away from the first Australian case on a 3,000-mile continent. Roger Stankovic, I brought it up to him. He goes, there's a book in Australia by Bill Chalker, the famous Australian ufologist, called Hair of the Alien. And That's about a man who has the same thing happen to him and then had subsequent sexual encounters with the tall, blonde female Nordic.
Mm.
And she left behind a strand of hair. And the DNA analysis showed that it had 2 different genome types in it.
What?
Then we started finding more skull driller cases. In all, I think I presented 9. And the most curious set was there was an Oklahoma case with a woman who had an object allegedly planted. But a lot of these people, they never find the
Have
object.
no objects found.
But in 2 of the cases, there were objects. And
Really?
one of them got lost. Yeah, one of them the doctor never gave back to the woman. He goes, I don't know what this is. But...
It's biomedical waste, and you can't have it.
That's right. And this Oklahoma case from 1980, Oklahoma City, is identical to all the others. 11 days after that, in Joplin, Missouri, which is only 300 miles away from Oklahoma City, a woman reported a new case of a skull drilling. So while they were separated by decades, they weren't separated by much distance, and it's just really odd that there was one case from 1980 and another one from this year, 11 days after we got the first one from 1980.
Wow.
That's weird.
11 days. That is a very close proximity of time, especially for such a unique case, because it's not like somebody saw the same object in the sky or reported the same thing running through a field near their house, something like that. That is a very specific case to be repeated in such a small amount of time and such a small radius.
And plus, it's part of a larger flap. It's temporal flap over time. So at the end, I asked the audience for their opinion. I go, do you think this is just a dream? Nobody raised their hand. I go, do you think it's demons? Nobody raised their hand. I says, that's pretty good, because I don't think demons use tools, all right? They use crystalline,
I don't think they have a need for
fiber
that.
optic needles. And there was no agreement on what it was. I asked time travelers, I asked interdimensionals. The government ended up being the biggest answer, because it seems like it may be some sort of subversive mission, you know?
Sure.
So.
Yeah, and it's interesting, especially once you start going into the world of implants. You know, I mean, Roger Lear lived in that world for many decades and pulled out numerous things. I mean, Terry Lovelace, right up the road, is somebody who had an incredible object embedded in his leg.
He had the microchip in his leg, right?
Yeah, the clover-shaped, with an antenna, like a wire coming off of it. It was
Did you know that
absolutely remarkable.
When Ivan the Terrible died in the 1500s in Russia, they found a microchip-type square metallic thing in his skull.
What?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yep. We can never test it because it's long gone.
Yeah.
But that's so unusual.
But it is chronicled for the fact that they actively found
and
it.
did that make him such a brutal, crazy guy?
Yeah. Or was he hearing voices?
Yep.
You know, and even the idea of the Havana syndrome being tied with UFO, UAP cases right now, which will be presented tomorrow. Was presented today. That guest will be on tomorrow.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm getting my appearance messed up.
Roger's a great guy.
Yeah.
Very knowledgeable neurosurgeon. He's got his own laboratory.
Yeah.
He's the man.
And that's just it. When you're talking scientists on that level getting involved with something so very specific, you know, the Havana syndrome is something that has really popped up on the radar here in the last 5 years. And is the tail end of a phenomenon that has been reported for the last few decades of people called targeted individuals, who we talk about regularly on the show. Like, that is one of the active causes that we are behind, is figuring out what's going on with targeted individuals. And the idea that these two phenomenologies share something. The idea that, you know, some experiencers and even abductees may be experiencing the same thing as Havana syndrome, hearing the loud noises in their head, experiencing bright flashes of light, memory loss, all kinds of stuff is pretty remarkable. Yeah.
I'm not an expert on Havana syndrome, but Roger blew my mind. You know.
And you know, y'all are also right now presenting at this symposium crash wreckage. Let's get into that just a minute, Bob.
That's tonight. That's
Yep.
we're going to present on some materials. I'll tell you a couple of stories before I get to the main one. Rummaging through when I found the Leonard Stringfield audio 8-tracks last year, I found a box, and inside the box was dirt. And I started reading the letter, and it was a letter from a boy. And it was actually the dirt from the Delphos, Kansas case in the 1980s. It hasn't been analyzed in this century. All right, the last time it was analyzed was like the 1990s. So this Valet doesn't believe it's anything. He thought it was mold, and then this other book came out that said, "Oh, it's the real thing with micro, electrons."
Yeah.
So now we're going to retest it. So I'm going to show that tonight.
Okay.
We also have a woman who has these. They look like gelatin, but they never like decay. And they were tested by the NSA several years ago, and they never gave her a sample back. But she got the results that they didn't know what they were. We've retrieved some of her samples, and we're going to be sending them to the lab for analysis. We also have an abductee who claimed they had a gel spread all over them recently. And we know from back in the day, Antonio Villaboas, it was like some sort of aphrodisiac. Sometimes we think that it's to decontaminate the person. But this witness had the good foresight to scoop some of it off her body later on. MUFON Lab's got that now, too.
Wow.
And finally, we got the Russian sample, okay? And the Russian sample has a very odd story to it. And when we were initially contacted by this fellow Arkady, we didn't necessarily believe him. We thought it was some sort of, contactee experience. But he apparently belongs to a UFO group. They do these CE5 meditations. And he says that material started to materialize in front of him, little black pieces of material.
Ooh.
And he was in contact, and this happened over the course of 2 weeks last year. And he threw the first one away. He didn't know what it was. And then more kept coming every day, little chunks of this black material. And he believed that he was receiving telepathic communication from an unseen entity called Timothy. And Timothy said, "This is pieces of my wreckage." All right. So we said, okay, send it to the MUFON lab. All right. And he sent it all the way from Russia. And it's very hard to get something from Russia right now because it has to go through Turkey and then to and it made it to the MUFON lab. Along with it, he sent us 2 lab reports from Moscow, from gemological institutes, where they were able to identify 10% of it as an odd alloy combination of 6 metals, and the other 90% these 2 laboratories couldn't identify. So
The other 90%.
they didn't know what it was.
Wow.
So it arrives in the MUFON lab. Lynn Mann, our chief lab technician, puts the X-ray fluorescence gun on it. And after she tested it against aluminum, which is the standard to test it, the gun was working fine. It registered nothing, all right? The spectrographic analysis, all right, which I will present tonight, she says, "I've never seen a graph like this before. It doesn't match up to anything they have in their database." So we don't know what this is.
Yeah.
The next step is we're going to have it analyzed with an electron microscope and a few other tests at a lab. So right now, it's anomalous. And the crazy part of the story is Lynn sent me the sample to present. It disappeared from my mailbox.
You told me that on the last show.
Yes.
Oh.
I opened it. It was delivered. The lady at the post office says, "I put the box in there myself," and when I opened it up, there was nothing but a Yellow Pages and a supermarket flyer.
Wow.
We got a second sample.
That is fortunate. That is like the fact that happened to begin with.
And it had to go
incredible.
And it had to go through Turkey again. And we were so secretive about it. We were sending letters with stamps to each other. You're going to get the package, all right? Because we didn't want anybody. It's still laid in customs for 17 days. We didn't think we were going to get it. And then the code name was Hiawatha. And I got a phone call maybe a week before the symposium says, "Hiawatha has arrived." So we have Hiawatha in the building.
Nice. And once again, just to hear the fact that 90% of that sample is unknown. I mean, it's one thing, if you have a 1% unknown in a sample like that, that's pretty good. Even the fact of like, okay, 98% of this is fully known material. We can trace the alloy down to the mine that it came from because of the, atomic properties and the way that the isotopes are and everything else. But this is 90% of it that is unknown and unregistering on the device. And that's remarkable.
The 10% that was known, it was the one lab found 5 elements, and the other lab found 6. It was titanium, copper, iron, arsenic, and the other 2 I can't remember.
Probably antimony or something like that that's normally used with titanium, things like that, and aluminum alloys, things like that. Antimony is very much used in the world of alloy. And yeah, but even to know that 2 labs, 3 labs all came back with the same result, that 90% of it is
90%,
unknown.
2 labs, 90%. Our lab, we couldn't identify any metal.
Oh, man. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That is remarkable. That is remarkable. And what an incredible journey of that sample to make it to begin with.
Yep, that's half the story.
And the fact that you even have to code things to keep the mail from losing it.
Well, we know how much stuff has disappeared over the years that's UFO related.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and that is the sad fact of it, Bob, is the fact that, trying to find a private courier in this day and age, is a little bit harder than it used to be.
We were highly criticized for putting it in the mail, all right? But people think like we're this massive, IBM or Google. It's like, if we're not hand carrying it here to the symposium, we don't have people driving all over the country.
You can't afford an independent Pony Express to get it from one carrier to another handed off, in that kind of way. And that is something very important to bring up, Bob, when it comes to MUFON and the investigations and the way that things are done, is that, there are very few people, and I won't say that there are no people on MUFON that are under paycheck, or on salary. There are, but 98% of those people working in labs, everything else, doing the things that investigators are doing, people no, those people are volunteer, 100%.
Yeah, it's probably closer to 99% are volunteers. We only have like 3 or 4 people that were under pay. Yeah, just because you need office staff.
Well, you need somebody who maintains a content management system and a website and a database. You need a front head person to go out and talk to media. Things like that. But yeah, it's all volunteer. It's and the results that y'all get for all volunteer is absolutely amazing and phenomenal.
It is. With the volunteer organization, it's different than a corporation. Yeah. There's different levels of participation. There's people who are like doing 90% of something and somebody's doing 10%. But you're always going to have that with volunteers, right? But overall, the majority of I know the field investigators, which is my area, 90% all forensic backgrounds. We're talking, highly qualified retired airline pilots, fighter jet pilots, astrophysicists, chemists, you name it. We're not amateurs. We're volunteers, but they try to portray us as amateurs, and we're anything but.
Yeah. No, exactly. And here's the thing. I at one point I did I used to have a show called Talking Sound that was all about my AV industry. And at one point in the first season, I did an episode about 10,000 hours to be a professional, and I broke it down. It's like, okay, so if you're doing something 20 to 30 hours a week for 5 years, you could pretty well call yourself a professional.
I think so.
You have well nailed the 10,000 hour mark at that point. So, yeah, but I'm sorry, you're a professional investigator, whether you're getting paid or not.
Right.
You have put in enough time behind the investigation and research desk to be able to call yourself professional.
Yes.
At that point.
To the point where my wife knocks on my office door sometimes and goes, "Did you forget about your family?"
Yeah. Yeah. Or like mine. "Hey, here's some food. You may want to eat today." Because you get so enwrapped and engulfed in your project, the world ceases to exist.
Oh, my God, it's 1 o'clock in the morning.
No, absolutely. And that's just it. I don't think I know a MUFON investigator out there that isn't a night owl, isn't up till midnight, 1 in the morning because something is just scratching that itch of investigation so much that you cannot put it down.
Yep.
You know,
I'll jump up out of bed in the middle of the night and go, I got to look at that Ecuador case again.
Yeah, I gotta look at that again. I am the same way, where it's like I've got to get up and read that thing again because it's literally in my dream right now. Like it's infiltrated my rest cycle, and it's incredible. And the work that you guys have done for the last 55 years, I have said over and over again, I cannot wait until y'all apply AI to the volumes of data that you guys have, Bob, because you will start to find patterns, you will start to find connections that you may never have been able to find because of the sheer mass of data that you guys have.
Yep. And it's we've pretty much digitized everything now. When you add in Aquarius to the CMS and everything else, it's like it's all there now, digitized, waiting to be crunched, right, for results. So hopefully within the next couple of years.
Epic. Now, we've got you for a few more minutes here. How can people become involved, Bob? How can people help the cause of MUFON? How can the average person out there help this topic grow legs, move, walk, run?
Keep up with what the government's doing, all right? If you see something, say something. Go to MUFON.com. You can report. Just click on the report a UFO button or report an abduction if that's what may have happened to you. Become a member. Membership start at $60 a month. You get a bi-monthly newsletter. You get a monthly
60 a
magazine.
month or 60 a year?
60 a year, thank you. 60 a year, very cheap.
Yeah.
And you get an e-journal every month. If you want the paper copy in the mail, it's a little bit more. And we have different levels of membership. You can include MUFON TV. That's more, and you can actually include Project Aquarius's digital library in the top membership.
Yep.
But most of all, the thing that I loved best was after I became a MUFON member, I decided to become a field investigator. Yeah. And I purchased the book. It's a one-time charge. You study it. It's an open book test. Most people have, some sort of background, but anybody actually can buy the book and take the test and pass and become a field investigator. And I'll tell you, it's the most rewarding thing I ever did. Some of the cases that I've worked are so scary that they would make your hair stand up.
Yeah.
But when you do as many cases as I have and have researched as much as I have, and you see all of those patterns, you just know that this is a real phenomenon. And if you want to be part of it, become a field investigator.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm getting ready to sign up for my field investigator training as we speak. My wife and I were talking about it as I arrived the day of field investigator training this year. And I was like, I need to go through that next year. I need to talk to my state director, get on the list, and make sure that I am at training next year. Because it's definitely something that I feel as though, because we all have different skill sets.
Right.
Not everybody is great with an electrical meter. Not everybody is great with, taking scientific data, things like that. But many people are better at talking. Being able to be trusted by people. And that's really a lot of what a field investigator is being able to open-heartedly talk to somebody, open-mindedly listen to them without judgment.
Sure. We actually have an entire course in MUFON University, our digital university for field investigators, which is free to a field investigator, where we teach you how to interview people, interview techniques, how to tell if someone's, perpetrating a hoax, never lead the person with leading questions, make them feel that you're going to protect their anonymity, okay? Yeah. So there's all sorts of things they teach you as to how to interview people in a case. Yeah,
and we were just talking about that with UAP PD, because they were here for the field investigator training, specifically talking about interviewing subjects, and not making it an interrogation.
Right.
Making it an interview and a conversation, which can be hard.
Oh, sometimes
it can be hard.
I'm on the phone with the witness 3 hours sometimes. Once they get into it and they trust you, it's like, let me tell you another one that happened to me.
But that's just it. My wife has seen me numerous times where, a targeted individual will call or an experiencer will call because, Sev sends them my way or something like that. And she'll just be like, I can't believe you just spent 3 hours on the phone with a stranger. I'm like, how can I not? Like, somebody is sharing one of the most intimate moments of their life with me right now. Like, what? I got a steak to go make. You know, like I can't leave that. And that's just it. If you're that kind of person, you should really think about becoming a field investigator. Because
let me tell you a quick story.
Please.
I was wearing my MUFON field investigator shirt, and I went to Walmart one day. And I was going into the bathroom, and I heard somebody yell, "MUFON, hey, MUFON." Guy followed me into the bathroom, knocking on my stuff. Can I tell you, I had an orb chase me. It's like... And
this seems like an opportune spot. I have a captive audience.
But that's some of the stuff that happens to you. You know, when they know you're from MUFON.
That's just it. So, Bob, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come and sit down. I cannot wait to go see the presentation tonight on materials. It's going to be fantastic. Let everybody know where they can go to join MUFON, where they can go to find out more about Project Aquarius.
All you have to do is go to MUFON.com, and the website's self-explanatory. There's a join button. There's a become a field investigator button. Very, very easy to do. Report a UFO button. Report an abduction button. And right now we still have a big ad with the Project Aquarius logo that you, by the way, created for us.
Absolutely. Well, it was more than a pleasure, and I can't wait to be more involved with whatever I can do to help MUFON, because it is truly one of the causes that we are behind with our show. It's something that it's an amazing community of individuals, an amazing community of researchers. So thank you for your devotion to it over the last many, many years, and everything that you do in the world of investigation with the Office of Director of International Investigation.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Absolutely. While you are online checking out everything from Bob Spearing and MUFON at MUFON.com, everybody, make sure to stop on by CuriousRealm.com. That is where you can like, follow, subscribe, share, comment. That's where you, too, can get your copy of the Field Investigation and Encounter Log, where if you're an investigator out in the field, you can keep all of your notes right there in one convenient spot. Stay tuned through these commercial breaks. We'll be right back with more of our continuing coverage of the MUFON International Symposium 2024 right here in Irving, Texas, folks. We'll be right back.
The key to good science is good research. At the heart of good research is a good data set. With the Field Observation and Encounter Log from Curious Research, you can easily keep track of your investigative information all in one place, making it easier to review cases and readily see comparisons and contrasts between them. Whether out in the woods squatching, in a back room gathering EVPs, or using high-tech gear to track UFO, UAP activity, this easy-to-carry, pocket-sized scientific data log is the perfect companion for any field researcher. You can find your copy of the Curious Research Field Observation and Encounter Log at Amazon.com, or visit the official Curious Realm store at CuriousRealm.com/store to reserve your copy for yourself, your family, or a mind that you want to open. That website again is CuriousRealm.com/store.